Joining us now live with Armen and Levack, 104.5 The Team. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee. Adam Schefter, how we doing?
Armen and Levack, how you guys doing, all right?
We're doing good. Sir. Now, you got fired on Friday, and then they brought you back? Like, what happened?
In fact, I was thinking of filing a wrongful termination lawsuit against ESPN, but then they took me back, and everything worked out, and so we're all good.
So, hang on. How did you accidentally get fired? Like, how does that happen?
Well, it was actually pretty funny because what happened was on Thursday, I was here working in Bristol, where I am right now, and my iPad wasn't working. It had to be recertified. I guess some certificate that you have to have at work. So I had an IT guy working on it. He's like, "Okay, you're good to go." I'm like, "Great." So that night, it was a situation where all of a sudden I didn't get any emails. I didn't think anything of it. And I woke up on Friday morning. I still didn't have any emails. And I called IT. I'm like, "What's going on here?" And they're like, "We'll check into it." I'm like, "Okay." I called back 2 hours later. And I'm like, "What's going on?" They said, "We have reason to believe you were terminated." I'm like, I was? Okay, I didn't know that. Like, we have HR on the other line right now confirming that you haven't been terminated. Okay, so you thought I was, but now I'm not. But somebody set it up so that I was after my computer issues the day before. So, again, I had very, very little computer support, and my devices on Friday throughout the day, and they had to spend the day creating all the files that I had, and that was after they thought I was fired, but I wasn't fired, and it was a mistake, and just a whole big mess.
This is just a prank from Mortensen, isn't it?
I don't know what it was. I mean, it's just weird.
Wow. So, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, you really thought you got fired, and at 10, you were like, holy crap?
No, I really didn't think I was,
okay,
but I was surprised to hear that it was even in the conversation. But listen, this day and age, you never know. Like, somebody tells you, so, okay, like, I didn't see that coming. Like, there are things that happen every day in the world of sports that you don't see coming.
Hey, this is a good one. I'm just trying to think of ways we can get rid of Levack, so don't worry about that. ESPN's Adam Schefter with Armen and Levack. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee every Monday at 4:45. Hey, ESPN legal analyst Roger Cossack says the NFL is going to win Deflategate in federal court, hands down. Are you feeling that same way?
Lester Munson was the one who said that.
I'm sorry, Lester Munson. Do you feel the same way?
I don't feel nearly as strongly as he does. I'll say that. Now, I'm not telling you he won't be right ultimately, because he very well may. But having sat in that courtroom each of the last 2 weeks, the judge seems very leery, shall we say, of the evidence that the NFL has presented. He has sounded disillusioned and disenchanted with the case that the NFL has presented, and I think that when you look at it, to me, you can tell that the judge disagrees with the NFL's thinking that deflating the footballs is and was a major issue and advantage, let alone questioning the validity of the evidence, and that's before all the procedural problems that he raised. So again, maybe he's just doing that to soften up the NFL for a settlement. That's possible. Maybe he's doing that because he wants to be fair and balanced, and he knows he has to rule in favor of the NFL because Commissioner Goodell has broad authority to discipline players and do what he wants under the CBA that the NFLPA signed off on. That's possible. Or it could just be that he flat out doesn't believe in the Wells report and doesn't believe how the NFL arrived at it. And the judge himself raised issues of fundamental fairness because Jeff Pash, in the judge's words, an NFL attorney, wrote the report, co-wrote the report, co-edited the report, and then was not allowed to testify during the appeal hearing, which the judge was a little bit confused by. So, again, there are any number of issues that the judge has raised, and when you sit in that courtroom, I'll just tell you that it certainly looks like Tom Brady is winning 35-7. To me, that's what it feels like. Now, it doesn't mean that the NFL couldn't come back and make a big comeback and win the game, or it couldn't. Maybe it means that the NFL has just been saving all its plays for the very end, and they've got enough manpower and firepower to pull it all out easily. That could be. I'm not going to go as far as Lester Munson to say the NFL is going to win this case. I don't know that. I don't know that the NFLPA is going to win. To me, it could go either way. That's the way that I look at it.
So if the NFL sitting on their hands waiting for a judgment, just assuming they're going to win, they may be really, really shocked.
Yeah, I think that they're very confident in their position, and that's fine. I mean, the law is what it is, and federal judges rarely overturn the decision of arbitrators. I mean, that's been the history. If you look back in this particular courthouse, I think there was a 6-year period from 2005 to 2011 where there were 68 cases that went to Judge Berman, and 66 of them were upheld. So the percentages, strong percentages, are in the NFL's favor. I get it, but I'm just telling you, listening to the judge, all is not right there, and to me, it wouldn't surprise me if it went either way.
ESPN's Adam Schefter with Armen and Levack. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee. And we know Judge Berman has been pushing for these two sides to settle. Any chance that happens, Adam?
I don't see that happening right now. Again, you never know. And, we've said this often, that it's a deadline league and deals get done when they have to. And the deadline for this really isn't until September 4th when Judge Berman said he's going to move from the bench and make a decision. But that doesn't mean that the two sides couldn't reach something before then. Right before then, they're next scheduled to be in court on August 31st, not before then. As far as I know, there are no settlement talks scheduled until that time on August 31st. So that would be the next time these two sides would be getting together, a week from today. And then the judge could rule later in the week. But again, there's no guarantee that's going to happen. He said don't hold him to it, but that's the timeline as it lays out right now. Back in court a week from today, judge's ruling due by the end of next week.
What's the story with John Mara not wanting to get involved with Deflategate?
Well, I think the judge asked the NFL if he'd have any interest, and he obviously does not feel comfortable in that regard, working on a case where he's an owner in the league, and basically, I don't say he turned down the chance, but I don't think the league felt like it could even bring him into the case with him being an owner, so it never really got off the ground.
Ironic that he didn't have any problem talking about the Cowboys and the Redskins when they got penalized for their cap issues?
I didn't think about it like that at all. I mean, there have been various people that have speculated on how much he was or wasn't involved. I really don't know how much he was or wasn't involved. There were certainly people who thought he could have been. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. Who knows?
Adam Schefter with Armen and Levack. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee, deathwishcoffee.com. Shefty, the Giants lose another safety for the year in Bennett Jackson. Looking at Nat Burhay and Landon Collins to start. So do they have one of the weakest safety groups in the entire league?
Well, they've got a lot of question marks, and they've got a lot of injuries to that position. And Landon Collins got hurt early in the preseason. They lose Bennett Jackson to a season-ending torn ACL. They bring in Brandon Merriweather, who's got some talent, who's got some experience, but has made some mistakes over time. And for whatever reason, they let Antrell Rowe go. And I think there were some people in that organization that wished they had kept him because his leadership was invaluable. And at times, maybe he wasn't always the best player, but he was a solid safety. He was a presence in the locker room. And there are times like now that you miss a player like that. Unfortunately, they have to go other routes, other directions. Every team in the league suffers injuries. They've suffered more than their fair share this preseason. It just seems like when you're watching them, it just seems like, man, the Giants get banged up. I don't know why that is, but that's the way it seems to me.
When you speak of leadership and getting banged up, what are we hearing about John Beeson?
Sounds like it's going to be very difficult for him to play in the regular season opener. They're hoping that he's back for the rest of, or for the first week of the regular season. He's not going to play the rest of the preseason in the remaining two preseason games. They open the season on the road at Dallas, I believe. And so it's a situation where they're hoping he can get there, but I don't know that he will.
And Adam, Ruben Randall last week said sky's the limit for this offense. They could be one of the most potent offenses in the league. Meanwhile, Cruz, and OBJ have not been in one practice together at the same time. How concerned are we about those three guys' injuries?
Yeah, they're worried about the wide receivers right now. I mean, if you watched, Odell Beckham Jr. has not caught a pass in two preseason games. So, again, it's a situation that basically the defense, the coverage has been aggressive. He's looked frustrated. Victor Cruz, obviously, working him back in very slowly with the injury in the past. Ruben Randall, Tom Coughlin himself has been perplexed as to what's going on with him injury-wise. And I think the bottom line to this is that everybody expected the wide receivers here would be a strength for this team, and they probably will turn out to be one. But so far, they've been more confounding and more problematic than anything else through the early part of the preseason, for whatever that's worth.
Adam, when we look at JPP now starting to tweet a little bit and make light of the fact that he's missing a finger, what do we take from that?
Well, you take from it that he's got a good attitude, that he's got no choice but to go on with essentially what's happened with him, and he's got to live with that moving forward. And I think we're getting closer and closer. Everybody knew that he was never going to come into training camp and that he would report sometime before the start of the season. That's always been the hope. It's always been the expectation. I still think that that's still the case. I think the Giants still want to get their eyes on him and put him through a medical exam and see exactly what's going on, to see the full extent of the injuries, because nobody really knows them, and they certainly could be more extensive than we already know right now. So I think the Giants need to get some answers first. And And it sounds like they could be seeing JPP at some point here in the next few weeks.
Is there any feeling from the Giants where they're not happy with the fact that they have no idea how JPP is doing physically?
Oh, yeah, they're definitely not happy about it. I mean, how would you feel if you put a franchise tag on a player for $14.8 million? He hadn't signed it, so he's not contractually your property. But you had no idea how he was doing, how he was faring, what his condition was, what the situation was. He was basically stonewalling you, so you couldn't get answers. I mean, that would not make you feel good as an organization.
Absolutely. ESPN's Adam Schefter with Armen and Levack. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee. How much trouble are the Bills in with all of their injuries? Wide receiver, running back, linebacker.
You know, we can go through this almost with every team, basically, because they all have something that's going wrong. Green Bay now missing Jordy Nelson for however long. Pittsburgh loses Marquise Pouncey. The Buffalo Bills lose running backs. The key is not losing them for an extended period. And it doesn't look like those Bills running backs are out for an extended period. They think they'll get LaShawn McCoy back by the opener. They think they'll get Carlos Williams back by the opener. Fred Jackson's back this week. Bryce Brown's back this week. So, again, you can get by when the players are missing the preseason or missing a preseason game or two. Where it becomes problematic is when you've got an injury like, say, Ryan Clady's in Denver, the offensive tackle, out for the year, or you got Kelvin Benjamin, torn ACL, out for the year. That's where it becomes problematic, and you can't just replace these guys. That's the tough part. But you know, you can get by with guys missing preseason games or weeks. The tough part is the long-term injuries.
Adam, it seems like we have a ton of those long-term injuries happen in this preseason. Is the NFL working on something to correct that?
You know, I don't think it's anything more than normal. I think that it's part of the byproduct of the CBA. Players seem to have less football practice time. It's a much more controlled setting. And I think sometimes it comes as a shock to some of these players' bodies, and it's not always the best thing that they don't get a lot of that practice time. When I covered the Broncos for 16 years, from 1990 to 2005, these guys are practicing in training camp, you know, a month straight, 2 times a day, often very physical, in pads, longer practices in the off season. And part of the new CBA was that the players got less practice time, less work. And again, it's designed to extend their careers and get them longevity, and we'll see how that works out. I mean, they believe that's going to be very successful. But you know, part of the short-term fallout has been that sometimes these players' bodies are not used to the shock that they absorb, and in certain cases, if you can even make that correlation, and maybe I'm making a stretch here, some people believe that some of these injuries are due to the lack of football training and contact that goes on throughout the course of the year, which is not nearly as frequent as it once used to be.
ESPN's Adam Schefter. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee. Freaking nails, man. Great interview today. Really enjoyed it. And Schefty, glad you weren't fired.
Armen, Levack, glad to be employed. Glad to be back with you. Have a great week, and we'll do it again next Monday.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
Thank you, Schefter.
There he goes, Adam Schefter with Armen and Levack. Thanks to Death Wish Coffee. If you go to deathwishcoffee.com, promo code ESPN, 10% off your next purchase. It is the world's strongest coffee. How many people come up to us and tell us, that stuff is strong, man?
I love it, and I'll tell you what, my buddy who works in a garage said he's got everybody there hooked on it, and they actually get their work done now.
They're from Round Lake. Support local, man. deathwishcoffee.com.